The pine-covered hills of Ridgewood Valley held their breath under the late autumn sky. Nestled between ancient evergreens stood Cabin 47, a sturdy two-story log home with a wide front porch and a gravel drive that wound up from the main road. It had sat empty for nearly 2 years after its previous owner passed. Now, on a crisp Thursday afternoon, it was coming back to life. I stood in the driveway in jeans and a faded black hoodie, directing my wife, Sarah, as she carried another cardboard box from the rented moving truck. She moved with the calm efficiency I'd come to love over 15 years of marriage. No drama, just quiet determination. Our golden retriever, Max, trotted beside her, tail wagging at the new smells. We weren't unloading furniture yet. Just the important things first. Sarah's art supplies, my books, a few kitchen essentials, and the sealed footlockers that held equipment I rarely spoke about. That's when the trouble started. A white golf cart crested the hill, moving faster than it should on the narrow private road. Behind the wheel sat a woman in her late 50s wearing a bright pink visor and a scowl that could curdle milk. Patricia Langford. Everyone in the Ridgewood Valley HOA knew her as the enforcer. She had served on the board for 9 years and treated the community covenants like holy scripture. She stopped the cart abruptly at the edge of our driveway, tires spitting gravel. "Excuse me," she called out, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You cannot do this." Sarah paused with a box in her arms, eyebrow raised. I walked over slowly, wiping my hands on my jeans. "Good afternoon," I said evenly. "We're the new owners. Closing was finalized yesterday." Patricia's eyes narrowed behind her oversized sunglasses. "I don't care. The rules are very clear. No move-ins without prior written approval from the board, including a detailed inventory of all items. And you certainly cannot have a commercial truck on these roads. This is a quiet residential community." Kept my tone calm. "Ma'am," the realtor confirmed, "there's a 48-hour grace period for new owners. We have the paperwork if you'd like to see it." She wasn't listening. Her gaze fixed on the plain olive green footlockers Sarah had just set down. "What's in those? They look military. Are you running some sort of operation here? This is against regulations." Sarah set the box down gently. "They're personal belongings. Tools, books, some old gear. Nothing that concerns the HOA." Patricia pulled out her phone with theatrical flair. "I'm calling the sheriff's department. We have rules for a reason. You people think you can just show up and ignore them." She dialed before I could respond. Deputy Tom Whitaker arrived 20 minutes later in a black and white SUV. He was a solid no-nonsense man in his mid-40s with the calm bearing of someone who'd seen plenty of neighborhood disputes. He parked behind the moving truck and stepped out, adjusting his duty belt. Patricia met him halfway, gesturing wildly. "Deputy, thank God you're here. These new people are violating multiple covenants. Unauthorized move-in, suspicious containers, possible commercial activity. I want them cited immediately." Deputy Whitaker listened with practiced patience, then looked toward us. Sarah offered a polite wave. I stood with my hands visible at my sides. "Old habit." "Sir, ma'am," he called out. "Mind if I come up and speak with you?" We met him at the porch steps. I extended my hand. "Michael Reynolds. This is my wife, Sarah. We just closed on the property." The deputy shook my hand firmly. "Tom Whitaker. Mind telling me what's going on?" I gave him the short version. Retired military, looking for peace after years overseas, chose the cabin for its seclusion and the surrounding forest. Sarah added that she was a landscape painter and wanted the natural light from the big windows. Patricia hovered behind the deputy, arms crossed. "Ask about the boxes. They look like they're hiding something." Deputy Whitaker glanced at the footlockers, then back at me. "Any contraband or illegal items in there, Mr. Reynolds?" "No, sir. Personal effects only." He nodded. "Mind if I take a quick look? Just to keep everyone happy." I had nothing to hide. "Go ahead." Sarah unlocked the nearest footlocker. Inside were neatly packed items. books on history and survival, a few framed commendations face down, some carefully wrapped equipment, and a small case containing my old service medals. Nothing flashy. Deputy Whitaker leaned in, then froze when his eyes landed on one particular item near the bottom, a weathered unit coin I hadn't realized was visible. He straightened slowly, studying my face more carefully now. "Reynolds," he said quietly. "Michael J. Reynolds." "Yes." He looked at the coin again, then at the subtle tattoo on my left forearm that most people never noticed, a small, stylized sword and lightning bolt. The deputy's entire posture changed. He took one step back, came to attention, and delivered a crisp salute. "Delta Force," he said, voice filled with respect. "Sir." The words landed like a quiet thunderclap. Patricia's mouth fell open. What followed was one of the most surreal moments of my life. Deputy Whitaker held the salute for a long second before I returned it, feeling a strange mix of embarrassment and pride. I hadn't worn a uniform in years. I didn't introduce myself that way anymore. "But some things stay with you." "First Battalion?" he asked. I gave a small nod. "Long time ago. I did 2 tours with the 82nd before moving here," he said. "We heard stories. Always figured most of them were exaggerated." He glanced at the footlockers again with new understanding. "I apologize for the inconvenience. You and your wife are welcome here." Patricia looked like she'd been slapped. But the rules. The board has to approve." "Ma'am," Deputy Whitaker cut in, voice firm but polite, "Mr. Reynolds and his wife have legal title to this property. They are within their rights. I suggest you take this up with the HOA board in a proper meeting rather than calling emergency services for a lawful move-in." He turned back to me. "If you need anything, help with the heavy lifting, recommendations for local contractors, anything at all, you have my card. And sir, thank you for your service. The real kind." Sarah, who had been quiet through most of this, slipped her hand into mine and squeezed. She knew what those quiet years had cost me. Deputy Whitaker escorted Patricia back to her golf cart. We could hear her protesting all the way down the driveway, but her voice grew smaller until the cart disappeared over the hill. That evening, the cabin smelled of fresh pine and Sarah's lasagna. We sat on the porch as the sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky in deep oranges and purples. Max lay at our feet, exhausted from exploring. "I still can't believe that happened," Sarah said with a soft laugh. "The look on her face when he saluted you." I stared into the trees. "I didn't want any of that. We came here for quiet. For normal." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You deserve quiet, Mike. But you also deserve respect. You earned it the hard way." The truth was more complicated. I had spent 17 years in the unit, the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta. Missions that never made the news. Places most people would never see. Friends who never came home. I left when the body started telling me it was time, and when Sarah and I decided we wanted something resembling a real life together. We chose Ridgewood Valley because it promised peace. Tall trees, clean air, neighbors who minded their own business. Or so we thought. The next morning brought an unexpected knock. I opened the door to find 3 people standing on the porch. An older gentleman in a crisp polo shirt, a middle-aged woman holding a welcome basket, and, to my surprise, Patricia Langford, looking distinctly uncomfortable. The older man extended his hand. "Mr. Reynolds, I'm Richard Harlan, president of the Ridgewood Valley HOA. I heard about yesterday's misunderstanding." I shook his hand. Sarah joined me at the door. "We want to formally welcome you," Richard continued. "And to apologize. Mrs. Langford acted without consulting the board. We've reviewed the covenants, and you're fully within your rights. We've also updated our policies to prevent similar overreaches in the future." Patricia stared at her shoes. "I may have been overzealous," she muttered. Sarah smiled graciously. "We appreciate that. We just want to be good neighbors." Richard cleared his throat. "Deputy Whitaker may have mentioned a few things. About your background. He paused. We don't get many folks with your kind of service around here. If there's anything the community can do to make your transition smoother, please let us know. I thanked them, accepted the welcome basket, and watched them leave. Patricia didn't say another word. Over the following weeks, the cabin transformed into a home. Sarah set up her studio in the sunroom, canvases of mountain landscapes slowly filling the walls. I spent mornings chopping firewood and repairing the old shed out back. Afternoons were for long hikes with Max through the national forest that bordered our property. Word spread quietly. Not in a boastful way. I never volunteered details, but small mountain communities have their own information networks. A few veterans in the valley stopped by to introduce themselves. An older Marine named Frank brought over tools and offered help fixing the dock on the small lake nearby. A retired Army helicopter pilot and his wife invited us to a low-key barbecue. Even Patricia eventually thawed. She showed up one Saturday with a homemade pie and a stiff apology. Sarah invited her in for coffee. They talked about gardening. I stayed mostly quiet, but I saw the effort for what it was. One evening in late November, as snow dusted the pines, Sarah and I sat by the stone fireplace. The footlockers were now unpacked and stored away in the basement. The commendations hung in a simple frame in my study, not for show, but as quiet reminders of where I'd been. I was scared when we first got here, Sarah admitted, staring into the flames. Not of the move. Of whether we'd ever find peace again. After everything. I pulled her closer. We're building it. One day at a time. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. Inside, the cabin felt solid. A sanctuary earned through years of sacrifice, not just mine but ours. The HOA Karen had called the cops thinking she'd caught dangerous strangers carrying suspicious boxes. Instead, a deputy recognized a brother in arms and offered a salute that carried more weight than any official welcome. And in the quiet mountains of Ridgewood Valley, a Delta Force operator and his wife finally started unpacking the rest of their lives.